Please welcome the incredibly talented, the lady that has the same hairstyle as me today, Nicole Bianchi. Welcome
Hey
to the show,
everyone.
girl. Yeah. So you said you're from Nebraska. If it's not a state that's touching Canada or California or Florida, I don't know where that is. So tell us, where is that?
I am right in the center of the United
Okay.
States of America. Yes, right in the center. So, right, probably exactly in the center of the West and the East Coast, and just a few states south of Canada.
Is it the perfectly rectangular state?
No, that's right. No, that's Kansas. No,
Kansas. Okay.
I
Are you
know.
close
But
to
we're
Kansas?
close. We touch Kansas.
Oh, okay. Do you touch a lot of states?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
You're a very touchy state, aren't you?
We are a very touchy state. We like to connect.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Now, I said in the intro what you do, but explain to us, what do you do and who do you do it for?
I work with leaders, executives, and teams to do really two things. One, craft their own small, brave moves. And two, to have the tough conversations that they're probably not having one-on-one or as a team. That's really my focus, is helping them, again, craft their own small, brave moves, get ready and have those tough conversations that they're procrastinating, and just ultimately work to be a much higher performing team. And so those are my focus areas.
What is a brave move?
A brave move is one of those that so many times we think of bravery as like the big, iconic, once in a lifetime things that we get to do. And actually, small, brave moves or brave moves end up being just those moments during our day, our week, or every few days where we have a moment to either speak up, challenge, tell somebody something that they may not be seeing, or saying yes to something that kind of arouses that excitement inside of us that we're a little nervous about because of fear or imposter syndrome. And it's saying yes and figuring out how to manage the fears and the triggers so that you can move forward. And one small brave move leads to another small brave move.
And how did you come into working in this industry and the concepts that you've created?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, working inside two Fortune 300 companies for 16 years, I saw it over and over and over. We would work with leaders one on one or in teams, to be able to do the skills and the tools to become one of those kind of iconic leaders that we all want to work for. And oftentimes it was a lack of bravery that was holding them back to be able to do that. So they learn the skills and the tools, but they would be like, okay, how do I take this back to a culture that may not be supportive of that, or an environment that I have this resistance happening right now? And what do I do? So I launched my business about 11 years ago on the outside, working with leaders to be able to do just that. But I mean, in any leadership workshop or executive coaching or working one-on-one with the CEO who's got some big plans, it's important to figure out, how do I script the moves? How do they script the moves to be able to do some of that work?
That's amazing. And so you said Fortune 300s, but does the framework and philosophy apply to even like one person shops?
Yes. Great question. They apply everywhere. And I would say not just in our work lives, right? So it doesn't, whether we're leading a nonprofit or running our own small business or we're an entrepreneur on our own, these all apply in all of those situations. And then I would say personal lives, doing things in your community, very transferable for all scenarios. I love practicing these first at home on my college age kids or my husband before I sometimes even prototype it with leaders, or I'll prototype it with leaders first. Then I'll be like, okay, yeah, I've got this. And I'll head home and start trying it out on them.
So do they know that you're practicing on them?
Absolutely. They do now. They didn't early on. So now sometimes if I catch them where they're not really paying attention, they don't pick up on it right away. But I'll often get the rolling of the eyes like, okay, mom, are you trying to coach me on this? Or my husband will be like, listen, no, not right now. And I'll be like, dang it.
Family's the best guinea pig.
They are. And especially kids who, my children are just and a lot of children are, they're just active learners. And so it's such a good group to practice some of these things out on, and check for, whether or not it's going to work or not.
I love it. Okay, so one of the questions I wanted to ask you is all around kind of what you do. And as in like the question of what do you do? So what you do is the biggest obstacle people face, um, No, what do you do is the biggest obstacle people face in having tough conversations. So it's all about tough conversations. Because I think about leadership too. Like when I had my agency, we had 12 employees and most were distributors. We're actually half and half. We had half in office and half not. To lead people remotely versus in office was very difficult, but you had to make it work and you had to have those tough conversations, whether it was on a Zoom call, over the phone, or in person. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
the toughest things I've ever had to go through in my life as a professional was having to fire people, lay people off, or have a conversation with people that were exiting the business for their own reason.
Yeah.
Holy moly. I can't even sleep at night sometimes thinking about those things.
Yeah.
It's a big obstacle. How do people build this backbone to have those conversations?
One, I think it comes down to recognizing. So a statistic that you should know is 80% of people right now have a tough conversation that they're avoiding having. 80%. So when I think about the five tough conversations, and one of them, just as you referenced, is the moving on conversation, which is the highest level of difficulty. But I'm making the argument that any tough conversation could fall into one of these five. And the first one is how do we work together? What do I need from you? What do you need from me? How do we make sure that we're in alignment so that we can accomplish all the great things that we want to do? And so often as leaders, we forget about these because we just dive into the what, which is what's the work that we need to do? What's our goals? What are our objectives? And we don't take time to really focus on the how. How are we going to accomplish this? And how are we going to come together? And if I'm seeing something that you're not seeing, how can I share that? If I have to give you feedback from time to time, what's the best way to do that? It takes all the guesswork and expectations that we have in our head but haven't articulated out of it. And it gets us on our way. And then the second conversation is the ask. And that's asking for what you need, asking for help, asking for permission, or asking for acknowledgement of a situation. And then the third one of the five is the what's going on. So I've noticed a shift in you, how you're showing up for work, your performance maybe, or our relationship, and being able to just pause and go, I want to explore what's going on here. If you spend time on those first three conversations, if you think about it, we're just building really strong, trusted relationships. We are in our groove. We are aligned, and we're making sure that things don't fester and go on too long that create the misunderstandings. And then the fourth one is and if we get really good at the first three, we should have a lot less of the fourth and the fifth, which is the being better. So that's you're not at your best right now, or the moving on conversation, just to acknowledge, hey, this isn't working.
So, what are the four again?
So the first one is the how we work. The
Okay.
second one is the ask. The third one is what's going on. The fourth one is being better. And the fifth one is the moving on conversation. And what I see in leaders is they get stuck because it's one, they're not spending enough time on the first, second, and third conversation. And then they have to get to the being better or the moving on. And they're like, oh no, oh my gosh. Like it becomes like too big and because they haven't done any of the other legwork. Well, if you're doing the first three, the fourth and fifth actually become a lot easier when it does come time, if you have to have that kind of a conversation,
Yeah.
and being able to do it.
So then would you say if you are already tuned into the first three, right? How we work, the ask, what's going on, being better even, would the last two be avoided?
They could. So the only thing I would say is you can only control how you show up, right? So you can make all the right moves, but not everybody is going to respond and be 100% coachable through all of those things. So you can't control if they're going to go do, if the what's going on, right? And you have that question and you're exploring that with them. You can't control what they're going to do with it, but you can have the series of conversations that leads to a much higher results. And hopefully you don't have to get to the being better and moving on. But if you do, then it's listen, we've already established, right, the pattern, and we've had all these conversations. So if it comes to that, it's not nearly as difficult because we've done all the work.
Right. And I think a lot of people where they fail is that this just takes extra time. Right.
Yes.
And they're worried about investing that time because they want the problem, the issue to be solved immediately.
Yeah.
I know this is outside of work, but it got me thinking of this time when I traveled to Croatia on a red eye with my 9 and 10-year-old son. last month. Was it last month? Yeah. And my husband was meeting us there. But to go across a 9-hour time zone difference with my kids, there's an adjustment on that end
Oh yeah.
and you don't know what to expect.
Yep.
Had the luxury of using this app called FlyKit, which is really great. It's an app on your phone, and they provide you with supplements and blue light blocking glasses. And you open the app, you input all of your flight information, how long you're staying for, and it tells you when to eat, what supplements to take, when to sleep, when to put on your glasses, which is great for me. I believe it helped me.
Yeah.
But I didn't have that for the kids. So the kids were kind of free range in it. And I was solo parenting for a couple days
Mhm.
because we were going to board a boat with friends for a week. I was like, I'd love for my kids to be as adjusted as possible before we go on this boat. Well,
Mhm.
there was one night, it was the first full night we were there. I was falling asleep on the couch at like 10 p.m. I was like, I'm ready for bed. My kids are awake. And I was like, I'm trying to stay awake with them. And I was like holding a glass of wine. I was falling asleep and spilling it. I was like, this is stupid. What am I doing? I go, boys, let's go to bed. My oldest is like, yep, okay. My youngest is like, I'm just not ready.
Yeah.
So I go, all right, well, we're going to try this. And if it doesn't work, we'll figure it out. So we try it. And like Noah, my youngest, is in and out of my bedroom. He's like, I can't sleep. I'm too awake. My mom, this jet lag is killing me. So finally, Max walks in too. He's like, I'm only awake because he's awake and it's annoying. I said, yeah. I sat them down. I go, guys, I know this is tough on you. We're all tired. We want to sleep. And it's got to be so frustrating that we can't. I know how that feels. I'd love for each of you to come up with an idea of what we can do as a team so that we go to bed. And they popped some ideas. And I said, I have the best one, I think. I think this is the best idea. It's 1:48 in the morning. I go, why don't we throw on our shoes and go for a walk? And they're like, Mama, what? Friday night in Split, Croatia. It is pumping. People are out partying. So the boys put on their shoes with their pajamas and they start walking. They're like, people are awake? Why are they awake at 2 o'clock in the morning and they're spilling out of the pubs like half drunks? They got to see this whole other side of the world. We maybe went for like a 15-minute walk.
Yeah.
And then by the time we got back, they were ready for bed and they fell asleep.
Mhm.
So I could have spent 15 minutes negotiating with them inside and trying, or doing something that I know is probably the best option.
Mhm.
And we all had so much fun. It was such a great time. And so we learned a lesson in that moment where we know if we can't sleep, we get up and we walk around, and it's helped ever since then. But as a leader in that moment, I knew I needed to do something a little bit different that goes against the grain of conventional parenting,
Yeah.
and we did it. And you know what? It was a beautiful thing. And so for me, it was like checking off the first three things. And
Yes.
then I think we learned how to be better in these situations. And I sure as heck hope they don't quit me as children. They're not leaving. They're not leaving.
I love how you're focused on their energy, right? And their mindset. And you didn't, I mean, you could have spent that 15 minutes telling them why they need to go to bed, but instead
Yeah.
you did something about it, right? And engage them, which drives that ownership and engagement. We know as leaders of teams, right? Even if it's a team of our family, it drives that stronger ownership and engagement. And they got to be a part of the solution. And off to bed you were 15 minutes later, right?
Oh, yeah. It was great. And so then we just learned that lesson and we've applied it ever since. So tell us, when it comes to leadership, what are the three mindsets you speak most about, especially when you're on stage, to make small, brave moves?
Yeah. One is hope driven, and it's keeping that hope driven mindset. And having a hope driven mindset is all about having a positive expectation for a better future, and then the desired outcome or the desired motivation to get there. So, one, it's, again, thinking about how do I know what I'm going to accomplish? Let me pause. Joel, cut that hope driven piece real quick. Thank you. I'm going to say it over again because I started repeating myself. So the one of the mindsets I speak about is hope driven, and that's having a positive expectation for a better future, and then the desired motivation to reach that outcome. And I find when you have that hope driven mindset, you know that that's going to happen. You approach things much differently. Now that you have to get into some routines to be able to encourage that, because not every day is going to be a day where it's like, I can have a hope driven mindset. you're dealing with a lot of energy drainers, a lot of energy fillers, and hopefully the drainers don't outweigh the fillers so that you can. But I find there's some certain practices you can do to have that mindset and to approach things in a much more positive way. The second one is embracing uncertainty. The reality is change is going to accompany us throughout our lives. We're either coming out of a problem, solving a problem, or heading into another problem. And there are things we can control. One of them is how we show up. And so being able to embrace uncertainty is one mindset that I talk about as well. And then the third one is being really intentional. How do we take what we can own and be really intentional about our growth, right? Giving ourselves permission to experiment and try new things in the work that we do. And those three mindsets, they're three of the 9 that I speak about in Small Brave Moves, on stages, and in my book. And those three are the ones that right now, this world over the last 18 months is really just attached onto and wanted more of.
That makes a lot of sense. Especially with the hope.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, would you say that it is a CEO leader's responsibility to instill hope into their team?
I think they have to model it. I think they need to model it and they need to speak to it in their leadership philosophy. I think the way they move with their team is so it's one thing to speak about it. It's another to actually build it into the work that you're doing and how you move as a leader. Your team will respond much more positively to negative situations, crises, things that are just being thrown at us that sometimes we can't control if we hold that hope-driven mindset, and we have to model it at the top.
It's so true. I think of like some of the top CEOs in the world are often the ones that are the most fit and
Mhm.
they're the healthiest. They have these routines in the morning, but
Yeah.
then that trickle effect too throughout the organization because they're looking at this person who's the leader that sets the vision for the organization, what he or she does in terms of like morning routine, how they show up in meetings, that energy.
Yeah.
And I believe it's shifted. Now, I have not really ever worked in a big corporations before. I've worked with them, but I've been at meetings and whomever is the speaker, whomever is the one that's owning the agenda,
Yeah.
that energy is what everyone else tries to match.
Mhm.
And so if
Yeah.
you can show up with compassion and hope and excitement and a big vision, then everyone else is going to match that.
Yeah.
And I've been in the opposite meetings where they just come in and they're angry at everybody and then no one's comfortable speaking up because they're afraid that their head's going to be torn off. And they're all there for the same reason, to like whatever the meeting is about.
Yeah.
And so it's so important. I mean, I think of this in business, as a partner in life, as someone at a restaurant. Like I remember showing up to our local, I guess it's the DMV, and it's never organized. It's always a crapshoot anywhere I go. Well, here you can make an appointment to get your driver's license renewed. They encourage you to book your time online. Well, I show up, I still had to wait like an hour, and I'm not happy about it. But I'm standing there and I'm looking at the people behind the desk working, and they are just hustling. They're working as hard as they can to cycle all these people through. And I bet you they were met with 95% negative people that were throwing hate and comments at them. Like, you imagine going to work, but imagine if everybody in there understood that was out of everybody's control
Yeah.
in that room. It was no one caused this. It's just, it is what it is. And if we could all support each other, maybe people would be more productive, more efficient, and there would be better systems in place. But we end up being the ones that just throw those cogs in the wheel. We end up being the ones becoming the bottleneck because we're so agitated and aggravated.
Yeah.
Just throw kindness around, everybody.
Oh, I know. And I'll tell you, our DMV is the same way, although they just moved and revamped some processes and have exponentially gotten better. So for those of you listening, there is hope with your DMV. There is hope. I can speak to it. However, what before they made the improvements and revamped, I knew before I went there to handle any business, I had to make sure that I had my head on straight so it wouldn't be a frustrating experience
I know.
and how I could show up, right? That's all I could control is how I could show up. So I bring things to work on and to do so I wouldn't be sitting there going, this is a complete waste of time.
Right? You're over there like whistling, getting emails done, and everyone else is angry, and then they call your name. You're like, "Yep, cool, my turn.
Here we
Go on
go.
up." And then everyone's mad at you for being happy.
Yep.
I love it. Okay, so we talk about these mindsets, hope-driven mindset, embracing uncertainty, being intentional. Here's what I love about number 2, especially embracing uncertainty is I don't know about you, probably not you because this is what you're experienced in, but in life, when we get through challenges, we always have like these sighs of relief. We're like, okay, that's done, as though that we're never going to be faced with an equivalent challenge in the future. But if we allow ourselves to know that something is going to come up again, like for instance, a long time ago, I was sued for wrongful dismissal. Now, knock on wood, it hasn't happened since.
Yeah.
However, given to me, how personal I took it and how heartbroken I was because I was just like, on what grounds?
Yeah.
Um, if I'm ever faced with something similar in the future, because life business is uncertain,
Mhm.
I would be able to face this challenge in a much better way because I'm like, oh, now I know what's involved. Now I know what I can do and can't do, and now I know how long this process can take too. Because before it was kind of like, okay, I sent the email now. Can we just sign these papers and we're done? And it went on for months and months and months. I was like, God,
Yeah.
this is so stupid. Um, but embracing uncertainty, can we just like dive a little bit deeper on that one?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want, I want your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think we forget in the moment when things feel uncertain that they're actually things we can control. So I actually have a something I hand out to individuals that, like when I'm on stage about here are the 22 things you can control right now. One is how you show up, right? How you treat people, what you put for fuel into your body, whether you got enough rest to head into this. And then it progressively gets a little bit more complicated, not complicated, but more challenging in the 22 things. But some seem really, really simple and really easy. Like, well, I could do that. And then all of a sudden it gives you this sense of control. So I'll share an example. I was doing a leadership program, gosh, 3 or 4 years ago with a few partners. And we had all kind of decided, let's come together. We're going to do this leadership program it's actually a Fortune 100 company. It was a big deal. But the partners wouldn't always show up at the same level as I had expected. And so things became uncertain. So, for example, one time they didn't even bring the leadership books that were supposed to be given out that day. So we were missing things. Technology wasn't working, just things outside of my personal control. And I remember it would impact my attitude. It would impact kind of how I would show up during the day. And I would carry this with me, all day long and then end up just being exhausted and drained from it. And then once I decided to kind of let go of all of that to say, listen, you can't control any of that, Nicole. You can only control how you show up. So show up and bring your A game, and then the rest will work itself out. Then I held a looser grip and decided, okay, yeah, how do I move through uncertainty a little bit easier rather than saying everything's got to be so perfect. And if it's not perfect, we're going to absolutely fail.
Right. I think it's just the perfectionism in all of us.
Yes, yes. I read that at the bottom of you
Yeah.
sent over the email for preparing, and you're like, hey, on the scale, I'd prefer it to be over here. So
Yeah,
let's
I mean,
do
obviously, I would prefer. I actually, shared an Instagram reel maybe yesterday or the day before about what do you think the world would look like if we all walked around with 100% confidence? And some people are like, "Whoa, that'd be amazing." I go, "No, it'd be detrimental.
it.
It'd be complete."
Yes,
We need to not be perfectly confident because if we were, things wouldn't get done.
right.
If it and actually things would go backwards. We have to have a little bit of that. I don't know if it's imposter syndrome, and I know there's some people that hate talking about imposter syndrome, but there has to be some doubt in what we're doing in order for us to improve what we're doing.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
same goes with this,
I
embracing
completely
uncertainty
agree.
and then being intentional too.
Yeah.
What is an example of being intentional, especially as a leader?
I one example and one practice or a habit I talk about a lot is setting your intentions for the day and setting anywhere from 1 to 3 intentions every single day. And the intention could be around a relationship you're going to invest in, things you're going to stay away from, a mindset you want to hold for that particular day, especially if you know it's going to be a really tough day. It might be a day where it's like, listen, I've got to invest a little bit in some self-care today, and I need to make sure I make time for it. So I'm going to set that intention. And I find that one way to be intentional is to actually set intentions so that we can do what we say we want to do and make it happen and turn it into a reality.
Yes. So I use the 5-minute journal alongside my planner.
Uh-huh.
And at the beginning, in the morning, I write it, and it's like, today, I forget what the thing is, what they say. Oh my gosh, it's skipping my mind. But essentially, like, I am consistent and confident. That was like the two words that I was just throwing out there every
Mhm.
single day, every single day, every single day. And like, it got to the point where I wasn't even thinking about it. And I was like, I am consistent and confident. I'm consistent and confident every day for
Mhm.
days. And finally, there were days where I could tell my confidence was going up because I was believing this. And then I became more consistent, right? And consistent for me was like, I got to watch the things I need to be consistent at. One would be podcasting, right?
Mhm.
This is going to be episode 180 something.
Yes.
And then I'll be celebrating my 200th episode, hopefully with a very special guest. And I'm on the hunt for this very special guest. Um, because it's all about consistency. You can't just go and podcast for, a couple of 2 or 3 episodes and then walk away from it and come back 2 months later.
Yeah.
Same with working out, eating well, being with your kids, drinking water. It's those little things of consistency. So it wasn't like being consistent in everything I did. It was like a handful of things I really need to pay attention to.
Mhm.
But that intentionality throughout the day, it really shows up. And sometimes I'll have to go back because I forgot what I wrote down because now
Yeah.
I change it every day.
Of
But
course.
today was, I am smart, sexy, and kind.
Nice. I love that. Well, and the I am statements are so powerful. And what you're talking about is you're seeing a shift in the frequency of you saying that
Yeah.
increases the confidence in you being that. And I talk about that in the 5 tough talks about tough conversations and how if we can increase our frequency, we can of having all of those conversations, we can absolutely increase our confidence.
Yeah, okay. I'm getting like downloads of going back to the statistic you said about 80% of people avoid tough conversations
Mhm.
because I can't stop thinking about that. It's so profound. And why do they avoid them?
Well, it's for a variety of reasons. So it's at any point in time, 80% of people have a tough conversation that they're not having. For one, it could be fear. Two, they think if they allow enough time, right, to pass, that it'll kind of resolve itself. So think about conflict stances could be one of the reasons. And then the third one, which is part of the reason why I wrote the book, is they don't know what to say or how to say it. And so if you make it even easier, so I actually threw conversation starters for each one of those 11 conversation starters for each one of those 5 tough talks. Because what I found in the work that I did with leaders, if they could figure out how to kind of start it, script some of the middle, and then end it with accountability and action, they were so much more confident in going in. We allow the conversation just to sit in our head and swirl. And so being able to verbalize it through executive coaching gives you, and practicing tough conversations gives you the opportunity to go, okay, yeah, I can go do this, right? I'm rehearsed, I'm ready. I've got enough here to be able to go. And then I'll lean into improv as I'm moving through the conversation and go where it needs to go.
Improv.
But I'm always going to end with accountability and action, always.
That just got me thinking. I feel like every leader needs to take improv classes.
Yes, I do too. I do
True.
too.
I'm not even talking like comedy, although comedy would be amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so you alluded to a book. Tell us
Mhm.
about your book. What is it about? What's it called?
So the 5 tough talks, it's how to lead brave conversations for exceptional results. I'm really excited about getting it out in the world because it'll be the go-to playbook/guide for having those tough conversations and lessening the fear and increasing that frequency so you can get to the confidence and the results that you're looking for.
So the methods in this book, can it translate to even like parenting?
Absolutely. These starters, you'll see that they are such powerful starters that you can use them in all aspects of your life. So whether you're parenting, maybe with a spouse, or a loved one, and definitely as you're interacting in the community and working on different community projects, community things, and you're like, oh, I know I need to have one of these conversations. I share a story in the book on the first conversation, the how we work, about how my husband and I were heading to Italy last year. And I was going for 7 weeks to actually start writing this book. And we were, the first part of the trip, we were with a larger group. And then we would eventually, after about 10 days, go on our own for the rest of the time. And what we found was we were so entrenched in like getting ready and going on this trip, that when we got there, we were a group of about 28 people. We were being kind of pulled a lot of different directions. Come do this, come do that, come do, and multiple requests. And then my husband and I were kind of looking at each other after a few days, frustrated with, and it was coming out with each other. And I was like, wait, what's going on here? And he's like, we're not getting any time alone. And I go, I know, I feel the same way too. And so we spent time having the how we work conversation on this first part of the trip so that we could still do stuff with some friends, but honor some time that we wanted to have alone together. And we both said, gosh, had we not had that conversation, the first 11 days would have been probably miserable because we would have been frustrated and not realizing why it wasn't working. And I was like, so I actually tell that story in the book and ended up having a really powerful outcome for both of us.
So it's so interesting. We talk about intuition. So my friend Anna Lozano is all about like frequencies and manifestation and intuition. And oh, it's so strong. It is probably the most logical center of our body. So in my planner, I talk about the head, heart, and gut approach to decision making and how we need all three centers, but the gut is the one, right? It's like,
Mhm.
like right now we talk about this like having a tough conversation.
Yeah.
And how you said 80% of people are avoiding having a tough conversation. There's one in my life right now that is very, 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 very profound. I know I need to have it. Um, my gut is saying do it, even though a couple people I'd advised not to. So now I'm at this like, but I know that if it happens, it'll clear the air because now there's this incredible like divide between this person and I.
Hmm.
And we start creating these own stories in our head about a situation that's probably not even true
Yeah. Yeah.
because we're not having the conversation. It's as simple as, hey, listen, I notice that you're a little bit off or there's something wrong going, maybe not say the word, don't quote me on this, but is there anything going on that I can help you with? Or is there something that I said that may have upset you or something about the situation? Let me tell you, when you give somebody space to do that, game changer. I
Hmm.
need to have this conversation and I'm dreading it, like to the point where I know if I called the phone number, I would be sweating and shaking.
Right. Well, because the stakes are high for you. So for some, it's coming, the stakes are high for you. So I have a question for you. So what's the real challenge in having the conversation for you right now as you sit here? I'm curious.
Without sharing too much information, I guess potentially legal stuff.
Okay.
So maybe there's something that I said that I don't yeah, I mean, here's the thing, is the situation is so tough
Mhm.
that I hope it's not him. It has nothing to do with me. It's not me. It's just a person involved in a situation that is a friend of mine. There's nothing stopping me from having this conversation other than the worry of being misunderstood.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And so have you taken the time to script out and think about what outcome you're looking for? What
Every car ride I have when I'm solo, I talk to myself behind the wheel. So yes, but I haven't written it down.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're open to, I would love to send you just to even just get your feedback. I'll send you over the scripting, the questions to ask yourself as you're moving through this, because getting it out of your head and getting it either spoken or written down provides a level of clarity for you to get a little bit closer to where you want to go with the
Yeah. And
conversations.
is this stuff available in your book?
It is. It is. It
Sweet.
all is. Yeah. It's very practical. And then you'll have QR codes to download additional tools to help you move and navigate as well.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. People need this stuff. Clearly I do. And I love when people write these books and do the work that's like for a leader in a, Fortune 1000 company when
Mhm.
the philosophy still applies to things in everyday life. That's
Yeah.
important,
I
right?
agree.
It's
I
like the The rich and successful are the guinea pigs for these frameworks so that anybody can use it.
Well, and you'll see stories woven throughout personally and professionally
Yeah.
of my own, as well as interviews, quick interviews with CEOs who are at the top who are still, are still kind of overcoming things. It doesn't mean it's a journey, right? It's a leadership journey for all of us. And just because we're sitting at that C-suite level, running our own business, running another business, doesn't mean that we have it perfected and we're 100% right every time. You'll see in the stories woven throughout, they still have to work on mastery and confidence and frequency in having those conversations. But the
All the time.
important part is they're doing the work. Is
And that's the thing, it's a constant evolution, right? I always say this, personal development isn't a weekend course. It's a
okay,
lifelong journey.
right,
And as you grow within your organization or within your career, you always have to be improving. You can't just read a book, put it down and be like, "I'm good. Guys, I read the book you said." You
exactly.
got to keep improving. Okay, is there anything else you wanted to add with regards to, what do you call them? Brave moves, tough
Yeah,
conversations, or your book?
small brave moves are tough conversations. I'll tell you. Just you don't have to go at it alone. And so being able, whether you're leaning into the book, coaching, workshop, you don't have to go at it alone. And oftentimes as leaders, as we rise to the top, it gets lonely, right? You get a lot less feedback, you get a lot less of this type of interaction. And so thinking about you don't have to go at it alone and lean into your circle so that they can help you master these tough conversations. I'll tell you what, I am a master coach and I have a coach that I directly work with. So the very best leaders get coaching. And so don't hesitate to realize you don't have to go at it alone and take time to invest in that circle, whether it's a coach or just the people around you to help you navigate some of these tough situations.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that too.
Uh,
If you want to grow in any facet of your life, you need to surround yourself with people that have successfully done it before, whether they're the next chapter or the next book away.
yeah. Yeah.
I shared on a thread today because now where everyone's jumping on threads is I go, there are, what did I say? I love this, and it's totally relatable. If you're on threads, let me know too.
Yeah.
Um, I said, the more successful you become in one or some areas of your life, the more you will distance yourself from those that preferred you playing small. Play
Ooh,
a bigger game, attract a different crowd. What also can be said of that is that if you want to play a bigger game, you have to go to a different crowd.
yes. Ooh, that last part really hit home for me. That is powerful.
Mhm.
The way I think I like that, going to a different crowd and thinking about who you're surrounding yourself with. The visual I get in my head also is who is at that next rung that I'm reaching for that will help me, and then who's reaching up that I can help pull up in those situations as well.
100%. That's it. You have to give before you can receive.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So one last question for you before we go. When I ask you what it means to be a wild woman, what is that to you?
To be a wild woman, I'm gonna lean into, like, being authentically myself is that wild woman for me. When I think about wild woman, I'm like, authentically, like, willing to just, try things, experiment, and for me, I talk a lot about living my best life. What does living my best life look like? And that's there's a wild side to that, which is fun and not every, and exploratory and permission to experiment. I'll tell you, every time I jump on stage, I have to do something new that I've never done before. And most people will be like, oh my gosh, that would scare me to death. Like, I have what I do that works every single time. And so for me, being a wild woman is jumping on stage and bringing something new that I'm hoping has an 80% chance of likelihood of success, or or that I think can work. But I'll tell you what, it's crazy because you get up and you're like, I don't know if this is going to work, but let's go. Let's do this.
Let's just do it. I might fail or I might hit a home run. Who knows?
Yes.
That's like with anything in life, right?
Yeah.
It's like you
But we
don't
learn
know.
so much. We learn just as much from the failures as we
Well, the failures
do
are the
home
lessons.
runs, right?
I mean, we should almost just reframe it that I didn't fail. It's not failure. It's just, oh, that was a lesson.
That was a lesson.
That
Exactly.
was a lesson. Like you can see the tape across my collarbone. I actually dislocated my collarbone a couple days ago.
Oh, shoot.
Um, Yeah, because I guess when you get a little older, your body just doesn't work like a 20-year-old. And I pushed myself a little hard at CrossFit and it popped it out. Ugh. Yeah, it hurts, but it's one of those bones where you just can't do anything with. So I have to like not move my
Yeah.
arm above my head. And
Oh, yeah.
it's weird, but I learned a lesson. I learned a
Yeah.
lesson that day. I didn't fail. I just learned how not to do ring dips.
Yes.
Okay, so if people want to go to find you online, Nicole, where can they go?
Yeah. Instagram, LinkedIn at Nicole M. Bianchi, or my site, www.nicolembianchi.com.
Cool. And tell us the name of your book again one last time.
Yeah. The 5 Tough Talks, how to lead brave conversations for exceptional results.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.